This happened about a year ago. I was working night shifts at an old lighthouse. I had just gone through a tough divorce. I thought this would be a perfect place to find some peace. The lighthouse sat alone on a rocky cliff. The waves crashed hard against the rocks below. It felt scary, but also strangely comforting at night. On my second shift, everything seemed quiet. I was just checking the lights and listening to the ocean. Then, I heard something strange. A soft tapping came from the entrance. I thought it was just the wind. I stood by the door for a minute, wondering if I should check, but I pushed it aside. I was tired, and maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. On the third night, the tapping came back. I was ready this time. I grabbed my flashlight, feeling my heart race. Each tap sounded desperate, almost like a plea for help. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Outside, it was still and cold. The sea breeze bit at my face. I scanned the area but saw nothing, just shadows shifting in the night. I thought I saw something move, but it vanished. I went back inside and locked the door, feeling the chill settle in my bones. The tapping came every shift after that. I started to dread it. I wanted to shake the feeling it was real. One night, I decided to explore more. I pushed aside some old clutter and found a dusty diary. The pages were yellowed and worn. I felt uneasy as I opened it. The writing told the story of a sailor lost in a storm. He begged for help, his words echoing the tapping that haunted my nights. My hand shook as I read, and I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. The last entry stopped abruptly, almost like he had been interrupted. The tapping kept going. I convinced myself it was just the lighthouse settling, but the shadows outside kept me awake. One night, as I sat reading the diary, I heard it again. This time, it was louder. It felt like it was right behind me. I jumped and turned around. The light flickered, and everything went dark for a moment. Then, it was silent. My heart was pounding in my chest. I could feel the hair on my neck stand up. Suddenly, I heard a whisper. "Help me." I couldn't see anyone. I rushed back to the door, but it was empty. I left the diary open on the table. Glancing back around, I half expected to see someone standing there, but all I saw was the dark sea. What really happened that night? And did I truly hear a ghostly whisper asking for help? I couldn't shake the whisper. "Help me." It echoed in my head as I sat in the small kitchen area of the lighthouse. The silence felt heavy. I glanced at the open diary, almost daring it to spill more secrets. That night, I decided to try to sleep. Rest was what I needed to fight the growing unease. Yet sleep didn't come. As I lay on the narrow cot, I kept my flashlight nearby. The tapping rhythmically returned, like a heartbeat in the stillness. I finally crept out of bed, the creaking floorboards underfoot reminding me I wasn't alone. I grabbed the flashlight and turned it on, the beam cutting through the darkness. I approached the door. My hand hovered over the handle. Should I open it? My instincts screamed to stay inside, but curiosity pushed me forward. I twisted the knob and stepped outside. The air was sharp and biting. The night sky was a blanket of stars, but I felt them watching me. The sea roared, crashing against the rocks below. I scanned the perimeter of the lighthouse, shining the light everywhere, searching for anything out of the ordinary. Then, I noticed it. Near the edge of the cliff, there seemed to be an object glinting in the moonlight. My heart raced. I moved toward it, the gravel crunching under my shoes. As I got closer, I realized it was an old pocket watch, crusted over with salt and seaweed. I picked it up, and my fingers brushed against something etched into the surface. Initials. J.D. The letters were faint but distinct, and an unsettling warmth traveled up my arm. The name felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. Suddenly, the tapping began again, louder this time. I jumped, dropping the watch to the ground. My light flickered as I turned toward the sound. I could see a shadow shifting just beyond the lighthouse beam, near the edge of the rocks. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice shaking. Silence swallowed my question, leaving only the crashing waves. My breathing quickened. I knew I should retreat, but something tethered me to the spot. Then I heard it, a voice, clear and desperate. "Help me." It was different from before, more defined, echoing out over the cliff. I felt the fear in my gut tighten. I wanted to run, but I had to know. I stepped closer to the edge.
The wind howled, and the shadows danced menacingly. Then, without warning, I stumbled. I had stepped wrong on the loose rock, but before I could catch myself, the shadow I saw darted forward. It was lean, almost human, but cloaked in darkness. It reached for me. I gasped, backing away. In that moment, the flashlight flickered out, plunging me into pitch black. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for the door. I regained my balance and sprinted back inside, slamming the door behind me. The sound of the wind and waves filled the silence once more, but my heart raced. I locked the door with trembling hands, feeling the weight of the pocket watch in my pocket. I sat against the door, trying to catch my breath, but the unease was only growing. I needed to understand what was happening. I'd have to confront the mystery of the sailor, the whispers, and now, the figure in the shadows. That night in the lighthouse was far from over. The darkness inside the lighthouse felt thicker somehow. I pressed my back against the door, trying to steady my breath. The blaring sound of the ocean was now a distant roar compared to the chaos in my mind. What had I seen? Who or what had reached for me?
My thoughts raced, but I couldn't shake the chill creeping down my spine. I focused on the pocket watch, which was still warm in my pocket. I pulled it out, examining it again in the dim light of the kitchen. The initials J.D. swirled with questions. Who was he? What had happened to him? I felt a growing connection to the watch, a thread binding me to whoever owned it. I needed answers, so I sat down at the rickety kitchen table and opened the diary again, determined to find something that might link the sailor to the watch. The diary was filled with the scrawled handwriting of someone who had poured out their heart, but the entries often veered into madness. My eyes scanned the pages until I paused at an entry that read, "If only I could have salvaged my time." Salvaged my time, I whispered, recalling the watch and its crumbling surface. I flipped ahead, searching for more references to J.D. or anything that might provide clarity, but the entries had become erratic, filled with doodles and spirals. Then I heard it again, a light tapping. But this time it was different. It was coming from inside the lighthouse. My heart dropped. I dropped the diary and stood, straining to hear. It was rhythmic, almost like a desperate knock, accompanied by a faint, sorrowful moan. "Is there someone there?" I called, my voice a mix of hesitation and urgency. The knocking stopped abruptly. My stomach tightened. There was a chill in the air, stale with a sense of foreboding. I grabbed the flashlight again, steeling myself as I approached the source of the sound, just beyond the hallway. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the narrow path. But nothing moved. Perhaps it was just the wind, I thought, or a figment of my imagination. Yet the feeling of being watched wrapped around me, making the hair on the back of my neck stand up. My hands trembled as I moved deeper into the lighthouse. I reached the old staircase leading to the lantern room. Cautiously, I ascended, every creak underfoot amplifying my anxiety. The top was dimly lit, barely more than a sliver of moonlight piercing through the fogged glass windows. I was about to turn back when I noticed an unsettling sight. There, huddled in the corner, was a figure wrapped in shadows. It seemed to pulse with the silence, its outline only visible under the moonlight. My breath caught in my throat. The figure finally moved, a gaunt, watery hand reaching out toward me. "Help me!" The voice, a desperate echo from below, slipped through the air, filling the lantern room like thick smoke. With every ounce of courage, I pointed the flashlight toward the figure. As the light landed, I saw nothing but a mismatched pile of old fishing nets and some driftwood. I stumbled backward, realizing the voice had vanished into the night, and I wasn't alone. My heart pounded as I turned back toward the staircase, but the crumbling floorboards had shifted. I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me, soft but persistent. Someone was in the lighthouse with me, and they weren't trying to hide. Suddenly, I felt the icy grip of fear around my heart. My only instinct was to flee. I bolted down the stairs, not daring to look back,
knowing I needed a plan. What lurked within the walls of this lighthouse, and how was I supposed to face whatever awaited me next? I raced down the staircase, my feet pounding against the wooden steps. I didn't stop until I reached the ground floor, gasping for air. The kitchen was still and silent, but every shadow felt alive, shifting with the dim light. I pressed my back against the door and peered into the hallway, my heart drumming loudly in my ears. Just as I was starting to regain my composure, the faintest sound reached me, another knock, this time echoing from the very bottom of the stairs where I'd just come from. It wasn't just any knock, it was as if someone was trying to let me know they were there. I turned my flashlight toward the stairs, the beam trembling in my hands. "Who's there?" I managed to call out, my voice strained and unsteady. No answer. Just the tapping, more insistent now, like fingers rapping a door. I swallowed hard and stepped cautiously down the first few steps. The air was thick with something unspoken, an electric charge that warned me to retreat. But my curiosity kept pulling me down. Each creak of the old wood under my weight felt amplified in the silence. Then I froze. Another sound broke through, the soft, guttural whisper of my name. "Anna." It curled around me like a fog. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. It didn't seem to be from the bottom of the staircase, nor the kitchen behind me. "Who are you?" I shouted into the darkness, trying to keep my fear at bay. "What do you want?" The whispers faded, replaced by an eerie quiet. My heart thudded with a hammer against my ribs. I turned and ran back up the stairs, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I needed to find a way to escape, but couldn't bring myself to leave just yet. What if there was something, or someone, I needed to help? I dashed back to the lantern room. Maybe there I could use the watch or the diary to uncover the truth. The dim moonlight still filtered through the glass, flickering like a dying star. I fumbled for the diary, its pages fluttering like trapped birds. I flipped through again, desperate to find another clue. As I read, a sudden chill swept through the room. I glanced up and felt a profound dread settle in my chest. The figure I'd seen before emerged, but now it wasn't made of shadow. It was clearer, a translucent silhouette hovering by the window. The face was gaunt, lined with despair, but eerily familiar. "J.D.," I breathed, realizing the initials on the watch belonged to this restless spirit. The apparition turned, locking eyes with me. They were impossibly sad. "Time," it whispered, its voice breaking like waves on the shore.
"You're too late!" I stumbled back, the urgency of its words crushing me with panic. "What do you mean?" I cried, gripping the diary as if it could anchor me to reason. But the figure only pointed toward the sea. In that instant, the watch in my pocket began to pulse with warmth, vibrating against my skin. I felt an unseen force pulling me closer to the window. Outside, the tide surged ominously, as if a storm were brewing just beneath the surface. Then everything changed. Without warning, the lantern room grew dark, plunging me into suffocating blackness. I wheeled around, gasping, feeling disoriented. The whispers came back, incoherent yet demanding. And then I heard the crashing waves grow louder, intermingled with desperate cries that echoed through the air. My breath quickened as I realized something was coming for me, something I couldn't see. I needed to find out what J.D. was warning me about. But before I could gather my thoughts, a new sound pierced through the chaos. Footsteps, not just behind me, but all around. The footsteps grew louder, reverberating around me like a heartbeat in the dark. I froze, my heart racing, straining to make out any shape in the pitch-black room. Panic threatened to swallow me whole, but I forced myself to breathe deeply. I fumbled for the flashlight in my pocket, my fingers shaking as I switched it on. The narrow beam of light sliced through the darkness, illuminating the room, but it revealed nothing, just shadows and dust. I turned slowly, eyes darting from corner to corner. The stepping faded, leaving a heavy silence that felt suffocating. My instincts told me to run, but my legs were rooted to the ground. Something or someone was still out there, watching me. The whispers returned, weaving in and out of the silence, steadily growing stronger. "Anna." "Stop," I shouted, trying to assert control over my fear. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" In response, the whispers crescendoed, swirling like a storm around me. Suddenly, the watch in my pocket pulsed harder, almost like a heartbeat of its own. A warmth flooded through my fingers, urging me to take it out. I hesitated. What if it was a trap? But then something caught my eye, a flicker of movement outside the window.
I edged closer, peering into the inky blackness of the night. The churning sea beneath reflected the moonlight, but I noticed a shape breaking the surface, something bobbing in the waves. I stepped back, fear knotting in my stomach. The figure JD had pointed to. I leaned closer to the window again, straining to see what was happening in the water. The tides crashed violently against the rocks, each wave almost a warning. That's when I spotted it, a flash of white. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was a piece of fabric, billowing in the water like a ghostly shroud. My heart raced. If it was out there, what else might be lurking beneath the surface? I turned back to the room, adrenaline coursing through me.
I had to know more, but as I did, I heard the footsteps again, closer this time. Someone was in the lighthouse. Fear washed over me, but I had to keep moving. I needed answers. I dashed toward the door, jerking it open with a frantic grip. I peered down the staircase, now illuminated by the flashlight. The shadows flickered across the wall, contorting as if they were alive. I had to get to the bottom of this, but my instinct screamed at me to turn back. "Anna?" The voice again, clearer now, more urgent. I looked back toward the window, but the silhouette of JD was gone. "What do I do?" I asked aloud, frustration mixing with panic. Before I could move, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed like thunder, shaking the foundation of the lighthouse. My heart dropped. This was different. This wasn't just a voice or a mere spirit. I needed to find a way out. But as I turned back to find a way down, something cold brushed past me, like a ghostly breeze. Whatever it was here, and I couldn't escape. Then I heard a low growl, the sound filled with menace. I froze, knowing it was a warning. I'd gone too far, and now something wanted me to pay. The growl died down, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed in on me. Something was watching. I turned but saw only darkness, the flashlight beam trembling as my hands shook. My pulse thudded in my ears, drowning out everything else. "Just breathe," I whispered to myself. I needed to think. I edged toward the staircase, hoping to find a way out. One step at a time, I moved cautiously, the wood creaking under my weight. Each noise felt amplified in the stillness. Halfway down, I saw it, a glimmer at the bottom of the steps. I blinked, trying to focus. It was a small object caught in the glow of my flashlight. With each step closer, dread pooled in my stomach. I stopped just above it and squinted down. It was a compass, the needle spinning wildly, as if it didn't know where it was. "What does that mean?" I mumbled, frustration boiling inside me. I reached for it, and as soon as my fingers brushed the cold metal, I felt a jolt of energy shoot up my arm. "Hannah," the voice called again, closer this time. Heart racing, I yanked my hand back and looked around. No one was there, but shadows danced in the corners of the room, mocking my panic. I felt the air shift. It was heavier now, almost tangible. I needed to find JD. He had been so sure something was wrong with this place. But why was I still here? The fear clawed at me, urging me to flee. I turned back toward the door, but then I paused. The whispers turned into a low murmur, different from before. "Find the light," they said, echoing in my mind. But what light? The one outside? Or was it something in the lighthouse? Without thinking, I bolted down the rest of the stairs and pushed open the door with force. My heart raced as I rushed into the main room. The walls were lined with old photographs, each one showing people standing in front of the lighthouse, their eyes looking elsewhere, hiding secrets from me. I barely glanced as I rushed through. But then I noticed something out of place, a trunk sitting in the corner. Dust coated its surface, but it had a shiny metal latch that caught my eye. Curiosity and terror warred within me. What if it held answers? Or worse, what if it unleashed whatever was haunting this place? I approached it slowly, every cautious step echoing in the silence. I reached for the latch but hesitated. What if it was a mistake?
The growl echoed back in my mind, warning me, but the whispers urged me on. I couldn't resist. I snapped the latch open and lifted the lid, the hinges squeaking in protest. A gust of wind rushed out, carrying with it the deep scent of brine and something else, something rotten. My stomach turned as I peeked inside. That's when I saw it, a bundle of fabric, stained and torn. I recoiled, feeling panic claw at my throat. It looked just like the fabric I saw in the water, but there was more. Next to it lay an old lantern, its glass shattered. Just as I was about to step back, I felt something grip my ankle. My breath hitched, and I fell backward, wrenching my gaze away from the trunk. There it was again, a figure in the corner, shifting in the shadows, beckoning me deeper into the darkness. Something had followed me in here, and it wasn't going to let me go. The grip intensified around my ankle, sending a jolt of fear through my body. I scrambled backward, yanking my foot free. My heart thundered as I stumbled into the wall, the flashlight beam dancing wildly across the room. The figure remained just out of reach, its shape indistinct but cold, a shadow drawn from the depths of my nightmares. I had to move. There wasn't a second to waste. I spun toward the door, but the darkness felt alive. The air thickened, almost resisting me as I stumbled through the doorway. "JD, where are you?" I called, my voice echoing off the damp walls. Silence answered back, a silence so absolute it felt like being underwater. I ran down the narrow corridor, every door slamming with each hurried step. Behind me, I felt it again, the presence, watching, stalking. I came to another room and flung the door open. This one smelled of salt and decay. Inside, a tattered net was strewn across the floor, tangled and forgotten. I could barely glance at it before the whispers gained clarity. "Help him." "Who help?" I shouted, but the room did not answer. Instead, my flashlight fell on an old chart on the wall. The intricate lines resembled veins, mapping out the coastline, and I noticed several points marked in red. One caught my attention, a location just offshore, circled with jagged lines. "Is this leading me somewhere?" I murmured, stepping closer. My fingers brushed the paper, and a shock of cold traveled up my arm.
I pulled back, gasping as vision blurred with images of stormy seas and desperate faces. I shook my head to clear the fog, but it wouldn't leave. "Anna." The voice was now a desperate plea, echoing in my mind. "You need to find him." "Who?" I screamed, my voice cracking. I felt exposed, as if the walls were closing in. I had to leave, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Then came a crash from behind me. I turned sharply, heart racing, and saw the trunk had closed on its own, a shroud of dust settling over it like a grave. A chill shot down my spine. No, 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 I couldn't stay here. Without hesitating, I bolted toward the entrance, praying for fresh air and daylight. My mind stayed fixated on the marked point on the chart. What did it mean? I could feel the pull of something deeper, a connection I couldn't understand, but I had to get out first. Just as I reached for the door, it shoved open violently, revealing a figure in the doorway. My breath caught in my throat. A man, drenched and wild-eyed, his clothes torn. It was JD, but something was not right. His expression was blank, and he swayed slightly, as if the wind could sweep him away. "Anna," he croaked, voice barely a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." A new wave of fear flooded me. This was wrong. He looked like a ghost. "JD, what happened? We need to get out," I urged, panic rising in my chest. He shook his head, his eyes unfocused. "The light. It's in the water. We have to find it before—" Then the murmurs rose again, louder now, drowning out his words. "Help him. Help us." I turned, feeling the pressure of shadows closing in. Something terrible was approaching, and I couldn't understand what it wanted from us. I grasped JD's arm. "We need to go." Just then, from somewhere deeper in the lighthouse, I heard the unmistakable sound of the lantern igniting, a flickering light stabbing through the darkness, drawing us toward it. But was it the answer I sought, or a trap laid for the unwary? "JD, follow me!" I shouted, my heart pounding as I dragged him toward the light, unsure of what awaited us. The glow intensified as we rushed deeper into the lighthouse. My pulse raced.
The shadows around us felt like they were pulsing with life. I could hear the faint crackling of the lantern, mingling with the unsettling whispers that still echoed in my mind. "Anna, wait!" JD staggered, wrenching his arm from my grasp. I turned, confusion etching my face. He looked different now, not fully present. "We need to be careful. It's not safe." "Not safe?" I said incredulously. "Look at you! We can't stay here. We need to get to that light." My voice trembled, but I pressed on, hoping it would give him strength. He hesitated, his gaze drifting behind me. The air seemed to shift, cold and heavy, as if it were filled with unspoken threats. In that moment, I sensed it, a darkness creeping closer, hungry and restless. "The light is calling, Anna, but it's not what it seems."
His warning fell flat as the lantern flickered and shadows danced across the walls. "Please, JD, we don't have time for this." Taking a breath, I stepped forward again. The lantern's glow flickered just ahead, beckoning me like a lighthouse to stranded sailors. As we moved, a door suddenly creaked open beside us. I jumped and turned to see an empty room with faded photographs lining the walls. They depicted old shipwrecks, ghostly figures standing amidst churning waters. I felt the air thicken, a muffled voice spilling from the photos, urging me to join them. "Come closer," the words whispered like a soft wind, but they dripped with dread. I shook my head, trying to ward off the creeping terror. JD pulled me back, his eyes wide with fear. "They want us to join them, those who came before." His voice quivered. "We can't give in." Then everything paused. A moment of silence reigned, before a loud clash echoed down the corridor behind us. I spun around. Nothing but darkness pooled at the door. I felt panic rise. The shadows looked more alive than ever. "JD!" I shouted, gripping his arm tighter. "We can't stay here. We have to keep moving." He reluctantly nodded, and we sped towards the light. The source flickered ominously, a radiant glow that somehow felt familiar. As we stepped closer, the shadows receded as if repelled by the light. But as soon as we reached the archway, I froze. The light illuminated a staircase spiraling upwards. At its end stood a lantern, untouched despite the air's chill. Yet the energy around it felt palpable and anxious. "Look," I pointed. "That must be where the whispers are coming from." Before I could step forward, a loud roar erupted outside. The walls shook as if the very lighthouse responded to a great force. "What was that?" I asked, my voice wavering. "I don't know," JD replied, darting glances toward the door, heart racing. "But we have to go up. It wants to keep us down here." His eyes, overwhelmed with dread, were transformed now. I realized then, this place had changed him since we arrived. He was no longer the same man, not entirely. As I gripped the railing and climbed, everything felt heavier. I couldn't shake the feeling that once we reached the top, we'd find something waiting for us, something we might not be able to escape. Halfway up, I stopped again, breath hitching. That's when I saw it. A dark shape lurking just beyond the doorway at the top of the stairs, shrouded in shadows. "Anna," JD's voice snapped me from my thoughts. "We have to hurry." But there was no mistaking it. Whatever loomed at the top, it was waiting for us. I took a shaky breath and fought the urge to retreat. The shape at the top didn't move, but it felt like it could lunge at any moment. My instinct screamed for me to turn back, but I couldn't do that to JD. We had come too far. "Let's go," I whispered, more to myself than to him. I stepped up the last few rungs and with a surge of determination reached the threshold. The lantern above cast a warm, inviting light that washed over us, momentarily pushing the shadows back. But when I crossed the threshold, I was met with a chilling sight. The shape materialized into a figure, a man, standing still, with hollow eyes that seemed to swallow the light. His mouth moved slowly, but no sound came out. I could feel my heart race and panic swell within me. "JD!" I called desperately, but my voice felt swallowed by the air thick with tension. "What is it?" He stumbled forward, eyes darting around nervously. The figure's gaze fell on him. I could see recognition flicker in its eyes. It raised a hand, pointing directly at JD. "Leave while you still can." My breath caught in my throat as JD's face drained of color.
"What does he mean?" he breathed, glancing between me and the figure. I don't know," I stammered, trying to contain my rising dread. "But we can't just stand here." I half-dragged JD back a few steps, instinctively trying to get away from the unknown. "Please, leave," the figure repeated, but this time its voice scraped against my ears, sharp and desperate. "They are coming for you." "JD, we really need to go," I urged, feeling urgency tingle in my fingertips. The calming light from the lantern felt like a false promise now. As if triggered by my words, the walls trembled again, louder this time. I felt the floor vibrate beneath me. "What is happening?" JD yelled, panic evident in his voice. The figure's expression shifted from grave to grim. It staggered backward into the shadows. "Protect yourself," it mouthed, then vanished completely with the flickering of the lantern's glow. In the next heartbeat, the room darkened, shadows stretching like limbs reaching for us. "It's not safe here," I cried, pulling JD back toward the staircase. "Wait," JD shouted, panic rising. The stairway was swallowed by darkness, and I could feel the weight of something monstrous closing in. "We can't go back without knowing what—" Before he finished, a shattering sound echoed from behind us. A window shattered somewhere in the lighthouse, sending fragments cascading through the air. I stumbled, feeling the rush of wind as something unseen surged through the opening. "Anna!" JD shouted, his grip tightening around my wrist. "We need to run." In that moment, a surge of fear propelled me forward. I took off, dragging JD behind me. The darkness chased us, and the whispers renewed their dismal chorus, echoing in my head. "Join us! Join us!" We raced down the staircase, the flickering lantern fading behind us. I heard the hurried footsteps of something pursuing us. With each step, I felt the malice in the air, and it pushed me to go faster. At the base of the stairs, I caught my breath and spun to face JD. "What was that up there? What did it mean?" "I don't know," he panted, his eyes wide.
But we don't have the luxury of finding out. That's when I noticed something glimmering on the ground where the figure had stood. I leaned down, reaching for it, hoping it could help us understand what we were up against. As I grasped hold of it, a sudden jolt of cold coursed through me. I gasped. Whatever I had touched was more than just an object. It was a warning, and I realized then that it connected with the shadows, weaving the fate that was already tightening around us. I stumbled backward, the weight of the small object calming but unsettling at the same time. My flashlight beam flickered as I held it up, illuminating a small weathered compass, its needle spinning wildly in frantic circles, echoing the chaos that enveloped us. I couldn't shake the feeling it was trying to tell me something. For what, I had no idea. "Anna, we can't waste any more time." JD pulled me back toward the darkened corridor. The lantern's light flickered weakly at our backs, casting monstrous shadows on the walls. The air was thick, oppressive, almost alive with tension. Whatever had been lurking in the lighthouse was on our heels. "It's showing us something," I insisted, my voice barely above a whisper. "We have to trust it." He hesitated, glancing at the frantic needle. "Trust the compass? Just like that?" "It's our only option," I replied, determination solidifying my resolve. "We need to know where to go." With a deep breath, I closed my fingers around the compass and began moving down the hallway, letting it guide me. Its needle steadied, then pointed toward a door at the far end. I felt the compass vibrating in my palm, urging me toward it. "Do you think there's a way out?" JD asked, but his voice was faltering beneath the pressure surrounding us. "No more questions," I said, quickening my pace. "Just follow me." We reached the door, and I gripped the handle tightly. The minute I pushed it open, a sharp gust shot through, strong enough to nearly knock us both back. I half expected to see a raging storm, perhaps the same one I had sensed when I arrived at the lighthouse, but outside, the night was deceptively calm, the water shimmering in eerie moonlight. "Where does this lead?" JD asked, his voice a mix of awe and anxiety. "Only one way to find out," I said firmly. I stepped out, and he followed closely behind. The air felt charged, crackling like static around us. With the compass in hand, I led us along the cliff's edge, feeling the weight of the lighthouse recede behind us. I wanted to believe we had escaped its grasp, but the shadows of what we'd left lingered in my mind. The compass pointed further down the rocky pathway, drawing me closer to a boulder jutting out over the water. My heart raced. Were we meant to find something here? The whispers echoed once more, stronger than before, urging me to uncover whatever lay beneath the surface. Suddenly, a powerful wave surged forward, crashing against the rocks, spraying us with seawater. I instinctively flinched, and that's when something caught my eye, a silvery gleam just beneath the water's surface.
"Anna," JD urged, pulling at my sleeve, "we shouldn't be here." But I was mesmerized by the glimmer. I felt I had to get closer. "Can you see that?" I said excitedly. "There's something down there." "It's dangerous," he shouted, pulling me back. But it was too late. The compass seemed to vibrate with urgency, guiding me forward. Each step felt like I was being drawn into a trance. I knelt at the water's edge, peering through the clear water. The shimmering object appeared again, a mesmerizing lure, as if inviting me to dive in. "JD, I need to see what it is," I yelled over the roar of the waves. The water surged higher, the sound of crashing waves darkening the air around us. "Anna," he shouted, trying to pull me back. "Don't!" But in my gut, I felt a pull, voices calling, the echo of past sailors lost beneath the waves, longing for release. My heart raced, and without thinking, I plunged my hand into the icy water. The moment my fingers brushed the object, everything changed. Visions erupted in my mind, chaotic scenes of stormy seas, cries for help, and figures beckoning from the depths. It was the despair of the lost sailors, their tangled souls reaching for redemption, trying to share their stories. I gasped as icy waves surged around me, pulling me in. JD reached out, grabbing my arm as I felt the weight of the water encompassing me. "Hang on," his voice was panicked, but I was already slipping beneath the surface. Underwater, the world morphed into a distorted reality. I was engulfed in shadows, but through the murky depths, I could see fleeting images of sailors lost at sea, and the lighthouse flickering above, as if it were alive, time itself slipping away. Their faces were desperate, their whispers sharper now, begging to be saved before the storm consumed them entirely. Then, everything snapped back. My hand shot up, breaking through the surface, gasping for breath. Reality struck hard as I felt JD's grip tightening, pulling me back. "Are you okay?" he shouted, concern etched on his face as I sputtered water from my lungs. I saw them," I gasped, wild-eyed. "They're trapped, JD. They need—" But before I could finish, the crashing waves grew louder, and I felt something shift within me. The shadows behind us swelled, eager and hungry, their energy coalescing into an almost corporeal form. "JD, I have to go." Without further hesitation, we turned and sprinted along the rocky edge, the icy water nipping at our feet. The whispers surged behind us, an eerie, maddening cacophony. Just as we rounded the corner, the lighthouse loomed behind us, looking more ominous than ever, as if the shadows were trying to break free. We dashed the rest of the way, adrenaline pumping. That ominous presence lurked behind us, the feeling that whatever had haunted this place refused to let go. "Where do we go now, JD?"
Panted, glancing back as I clutched the compass tightly. "Any way away from here," I replied, scanning the horizon. But the path ahead was twisted and dark, leading into the unknown. The sea raged loudly behind us, and I knew it was demanding its due. As we pressed on, the whispers grew faint, but the weight of the lighthouse still hung heavily in the air, tangled like a net around us. With every step, the compass steadied, as if recognizing the need for direction in the chaos. Whatever was allowed to live in the shadows of that lighthouse wanted to keep its stories hidden, and as much as I wanted to escape, I still felt the echo of secrets coursing through me, a connection I couldn't sever so easily. With a final glance over my shoulder, I felt the weight of the lighthouse remaining behind. What had I truly discovered, and how intertwined were its shadows with my own fate? The questions remained unanswered, swirling in the uncertainty of the night. We continued on, unsure of where the light would truly lead us next, but knowing the battle, the whispers, the shadows, and the deep sorrow would linger in our minds forever.